This is a new series I'm starting. I call it Documenting the Journey. This is installment number 1. And the point of it is that I document my own journey to having a multi-million-dollar business. We're right now at anywhere from 40 to 70K a month. So we're oscillating in that range. And I simply want for my past self and for anybody who's behind me on the journey, maybe there will be a couple of lessons learned that I can share that hopefully will resonate. My name is Michael Bohanes. We run a business that helps B2B consultants, coaches, and agency owners stop depending on referrals and start building scalable client acquisition systems. So that is what we do. And I would like to simply share my weekly thoughts, any kind of thought frames, any interesting things that I've learned over the last week, and to share it on a more regular basis. So here goes. And I thought that a good place to start for installment number 1 of this series would be to talk about what were the lessons learned, what mistakes have I made on the journey so far. I got into business in September 2016, so it's now been 8 years. And I've had the Alpha Lead Academy as the primary vehicle of the business for the last 5 years. And it has been the exclusive vehicle for now almost 1 year. Before that, we were doing the occasional done for you job on and off. But for the last year, it has been the primary source of revenue. And so what were the biggest mistakes? Because it has taken me quite a while to get to the current level, which is somewhere, as I said, between 40 and 70K. And so the biggest mistake, I believe, is very much related to the speed. I think I simply was very slow in executing. I did not focus on sales hard enough. And there's a great book that I'm reading right now. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson. And it very much speaks to that one mistake, namely, basically the message of that book is get to $1 million in revenue, just completely put the blinders on, get to $1 million in revenue, and then think more things, right? Then do more things. But to reliably and to sustainably get to, let's say, 100K a month run rate, that is currently the one thing that I'm focusing on now. And we've gone quite a way. We've gone from like 25, 30K earlier this year when we've had a bit of a slow start into the year to now the most recent month was 69K. So that is very much the focus now. And it really speaks to the supremacy of selling. And I very much see this with many people that I speak to. This is not a common message because most people, when they are consultants, B2B service providers, they primarily see the business as the vehicle to feed them. So they use it as a thing to feed rather than something to nurture and be it separate from oneself. I also, for many years, it was the main vehicle that was feeding me and my family. So obviously, I did not see it as something that is itself contained entity and that needs its own nurturing. And now I see that now. And the reason why it's so important to first sell and get to those 100K a month is because that will simply give you the firepower to start thinking long term. When you are at a level, and I would still count 50K as a level that is sort of getting you to go month by month, right? Because 50K, you let's say have 10K in cost. At my current level, we have maybe some 10K monthly cost. And then if you just take that as the exemplary month, okay, that's 40K left. But from that, you have to pay, I live in a high tax country. So let's say we have 20K left at the end of the day, which is not a huge amount. It's not like you can start, bathing in coins or dollar bills, right? Whatever your preferred path is. So this is not something where you can make significant investments into the business, such as, for example, hire really outstanding people who you have to pay, let's say, a 10K base plus then some bonuses. You cannot do that just yet. And the people that I work with, they are really, really good, but I still cannot have them to be on as, let's say, full-time employees where I just know that they're going to stay with me. They're for now, they are with me. I have contractors who work with me, but they could just walk away at any moment. And so I see this as a deficiency, and it's squarely due to the fact that I'm still only at, and I would have laughed at this 2 years ago, I was like, only 50K a month. Yes, it's only 50K a month because my goals are so much bigger than they were 2 years ago or two, 3 years ago. So the main mistake that I made, back to the original topic, what are the biggest mistakes? Main mistake I made is not moving fast enough, not focusing on sales enough. And sales simply means that you have to approach a lot of people You either run ads so that your ads get seen by many people, or you simply run a lot of cold outreaches, cold emails, cold DMs to people, and you simply make them an offer to work with you. That is sales. That is the mainstay. Content can be a byproduct, but for now, you simply have to get to a point where, let's say you're booking 15 sales calls a week, you convert 20%, which would mean 3 new clients, you charge 10,000. Okay, you make 30,000 therefore per week, 120K a month. That's it. That is the goal to get to. And I would recommend my younger self, I would just grab him by the collar and say, dude, do nothing but that. This is the most important thing. Mistake number 1, not focusing on sales enough, which also means mistake number 2 is kind of 1B, is not doing enough volume in outreach. And that is, I see this so often. Sometimes when a client is like an early stage client comes to me and say, oh my God, I did so much work. Like last week, I reached out to 20 people. And it's like 20 people a week. I'm reaching out to 150 every day. And I still think this is not enough. And we're soon going to be ramping up to 400 a day. That is simply, you just don't know the cadence that really high performing people do. And I would not count myself in that group yet, but whenever you hear like an interview with people who are very accomplished, they will just tell you the volume of primary actions that you have to take in order to be successful is just way more. People are insanely productive at the top. You know, they just have people who help them with it, but it's the productivity is completely unmatched. So people at the bottom, just as I was, they simply think that reaching out to 1, 2, 3, 5 people a day, oof, I did a lot of work. No, you didn't. Right? So it's very, very little. So volume. There was a moment when my coach, and I'll never forget this, it was exactly 4 years ago, when my coach held my nose into the, pee-pee stain that I made on the carpet, which was, how many outreaches are you doing per day? He asked me this. And I looked at my last 3 months and I realized over the last 3 months, I made about 120 outreaches. So like less than 1.5 a day, which was so mind blowing. And I realized, okay, I cannot complain about anything. If I don't do the work, I'm not going to get the results. So not focusing on sales hard enough, not enough volume in outreach. And number 3 was the belief that I'm working hard. I really believe that I'm working a lot. So that was a mistake number 3. And then finally, mistake number 4 was I was way too focused on content. I spend way too much time on LinkedIn. I think I spend like 3 to 4 hours every day on LinkedIn, commenting on, well-established influencers so that I will get seen. And to be fair, I did get seen and some people came to me. It's just completely unscalable, right? It's okay when you have to start at complete zero, you have to establish yourself, you have nothing going for you. So yes, commenting is probably the right way to get some attention. But as soon as you possibly can, you only focus on posting if you do content. And that's really it, right? Maybe commenting on a couple of highly strategically relevant people, but nothing more. By far, your biggest results will come from doing outbound at this stage. No, not content. And I was way too focused on content. And the thing is, when you do content at an early stage, it's very low leverage. The thing that adds really a huge amount of leverage to content is success. I also believe that once I have hit reliable 7 figures per year, so let's say 100K a month, my content will be so much more impactful than it is now because I will have much more credibility at that stage. And of course, it's to enter the big leagues, even 7 figures is of course nothing. So, but relatively speaking, my minute spent on creating content will be worth so much more once I'm at 7 figures than when I was at 10K, 12K a month. So it's just incomparable. Therefore, I strongly believe, and this is also exactly what we teach in the Alpha Lead Academy, in the beginning, as you're establishing, you're building your first version of a client acquisition system, primarily focus on sales, meaning outreach, interrupting people, making them an offer, and content plays second fiddle. Content is a funnel lubricant. Content widens the funnel, meaning more people come through it because as they start engaging with you, they see some of your content and they believe that you are very competent in what you do. So this is the whole point of content. It's not primarily geared to get new people to come to you inbound. No, it is really there to increase the likelihood that a person you've reached out to via outbound will actually become a client. So therefore, I'm right now ruthlessly focusing on getting to 7 figures so that I can make those long-term bets. Because with 7 figures in the bank, I'm building up my war chest by, let's say, 50, 60K. If I assume like a 20, 30% margin, and then let's say 10K to live on, plus taxes, then let's say I have a 40, 50K war chest that I'm adding to the business every month. And that is pretty good. You can now start to make a little bit longer term bets by, let's say, hiring account managers, taking some time, or getting a salesperson especially, right? Because getting a salesperson, that's going to be, for me, the next biggest unlock. Right now, I'm still running my own sales calls. So my current hypothesis is that once I get a salesperson, this is really going to supercharge the business, because then I will free up like 20 hours per week. Now let's get into a topic I call useful frame. So a frame is effectively how you see the world, the frame that you see the world through. And I do consume a lot of content as I'm doing stuff around the house when I'm walking the dog. So I consume a lot of, David Goggins and Jocko Willink and Alex Ramosi and so on. So some of those simply stick with me, and I just want to simply reflect on them so that I also remember them more. Maybe they're also useful to you. So one that really stuck with me this past week, and it's interesting because some things stick with you because you hear them for the very first time, and others you just need to be reminded of, but they're like evergreens. So like, oh yeah, that thing, oh, that's super powerful. This is one that I've heard for the very first time, and it is David Goggins saying on, I believe it was Joe Rogan's podcast, somewhere, the sentence where whenever he was down on himself or doubting himself, he looked at himself in the mirror and he said, "You're David Goggins, bitch." And that, of course, means that you have such a high opinion of yourself that this is the ultimate arbiter, meaning that if you feel like you cannot make something, you telling yourself you're Michael Bohanes, it means that this is the ultimate measuring stick that you are evaluating yourself against. When I was growing up, it was like a running joke in my family to say, never forget that you're a Bohanes. Later on, when I was growing up, it was used kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way, where don't forget that you're a Bohanes was seen as a little bit of a joke. But still, it stuck with me. And now with the "you're David Goggins, bitch," it came together again. And I really want to revive this "never forget that you're a Bohanes," because it also means that you're holding yourself to a really, really high standard. And here's the kicker. What this means, and I got this from Hormozy, is that you work the hardest when no one is watching. And this was such a powerful frame to me, because back when I was an employee, I was working the hardest when I knew that, for example, people were like expecting something from me, or where I knew that my computer screen was out in the open and I couldn't just go and watch YouTube videos and go into my favorite Wikipedia rabbit holes, right? Or reading the news, even worse. So I was working my hardest when people were watching. And I really believe we have to flip this around. When you're only with yourself, you have the highest standards for yourself. When my wife is with me in the room, I'm a little bit more relaxed, like when she's here and she's, let's say, breastfeeding the baby, I'm going to slowly interrupt my work. I'm going to sometimes interrupt my work to talk to her, to have a bit of a, nice friendly chat and say, "I love you," and blow a kiss and this kind of stuff. Or just make fun of each other, which we do all the time. But when I'm by myself, when she's not here, well, this is now when I really need to turn on beast mode. And I sometimes do, but not always. And when I heard this, "you're David Goggins, bitch," that totally struck me, where I'm thinking like, you have to have such a high opinion of yourself, and not in a conceited way, of course, but your work ethic needs to be so strong that when nobody's around, that is when you think, "Oh, I'm not getting distracted. Boom, I'm just now going to be hyper focused." So I found this a super useful frame to do, especially most of the time when I do work alone, which is, of course, the vast majority of the time. I'm going to have now a much stronger intensity. And whenever I worry that I'm going to get into a Wikipedia rabbit hole, which is, by the way, my favorite way of procrastinating. You start with one article and you click your way through all over the place. But when I'm tempted to do that, I'm going to say to myself, never forget that you're a Bohanes, so that this doesn't happen anymore. So super powerful frame. Then another theme that was strong with me this week was sacrifice. I recently sacrificed my love for history books. So I stopped reading them because it's simply not serving my goal, which is to build a multi-million-dollar business and leave a legacy and restart the family dynasty. And so I sacrificed my love for history books. Now is not the time. and I love them. And I just really felt the pain because it was just my birthday very recently. And I got a great book for my birthday, Hampton Sides Ghost Soldiers. I strongly recommend it. It's about the World War II in the Philippines. And I just love the book, and I just put it down halfway through. So I don't know how it ends. I mean, I know how it ends. It's a history book, but I just stopped reading it. It was painful, but I'm very glad I did, because every time you sacrifice something, then the universe finds a way to reward you, or at least that's what I believe. It just rewards you in the long run, sometimes in the short run, because since I stopped reading, we suddenly had our biggest month ever, which was the 69K. So it's working, man. Sacrificing stuff really helps. And the more of it you do, the more you let go of anything that is not your primary goal, which for me, I have two goals effectively, of course. I want to build a big business and I want to have a thriving, happy family. Those two things. And everything that is not that, and reading history books is not that, unfortunately, must go. Related to that, and this is a very much recurring theme because it's so important to be focused, and I'm scripting a YouTube video on this very topic, but here I'm just going to briefly touch on it, is focus is so incredibly important. And there are focus robbers at every point, at every minute of your day, including judgment, right? So whenever you are tempted to judge something or just engage with somebody where somebody says something and you just want to inject your judgment into it, is a waste of time. It's a waste of your focus. And I am so judgmental by my character, by my predisposition. I'm very argumentative. I love debating things. This is the hardest thing for me to let go. Any kind of ideological discussion, political discussion, cultural discussions, just letting completely go of that and stopping any arguments. And we're a very argumentative family, especially on my parents and my brother's side. And so letting that go is incredibly difficult. It's part of focus. And that's because judgment takes mental energy. And so judging something that is not related to how I run my business and how I run my family is a waste of focus, and I must not engage in it. It's also negative. Very often judgment is negative. Hardly ever you think, oh, this is so nice and I have to tell everybody. No, it's usually you're criticizing something. So it's negative. It gives you negative energy. I just got reminded of it very starkly so because I recently had a DM conversation on LinkedIn with someone, and she was telling me about her plans, and I really don't believe in those plans. And so I gave her my take on it. She didn't ask for it. I still gave her that take, and I shouldn't have. It was not necessary, and she was probably a little bit bummed out by it. And I spent mental energy. I experienced negative energy because I was disagreeing with something. Absolutely not necessary. So this is really hard for me to accomplish, but at least I have the awareness, and this is a good thing, obviously. It's like in meditation when you notice that your mind has drifted. I had the awareness that I need to let go of that. So focus has been a huge topic recently. I'm planning a scripted YouTube video on that very soon, but effectively, this is the main takeaway. Very recently, I stopped wanting to start running ads because I said I need to get to $1 million a year just by doing outreach. This is one method that I know how to do well. This is the main thing that we also teach. And I must be able to have that milestone where I reliably am making 100K a month, just mostly from outreach plus content, but outreach is the primary vehicle. I will not get into ads. This is also what focus is about, focusing not just on one business, but also until you're at $1 million a year on one client acquisition method. So with this, I'm going to end documenting the journey for today, and let's see how you like it. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.